Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, finally ready to break down the FCS playoffs. You know, we have been producing FCS content all over and all during this spring season, and now we are finally to the biggest moments, to the biggest games of this season. And today, guys, our first of two playoff videos this week, we're taking a look at what is arguably the best playoff game of the weekend. And remember that all playoff games this weekend, all quarterfinal games, will be played on Sunday. But this is the best one, in my opinion. We've got North Dakota State, the Bison, traveling on the road to take on the Sam Houston State Bearkats, sitting at 7-0, undefeated on the year. It's going to be a battle between North Dakota State's defense and Sam Houston State's offense. Which one is going to give on Sunday afternoon? Also, the first game that will be played on Sunday. These two teams, guys, they met in the playoffs just a few years ago, all the way back in 2017, where the Bison took down the Bearkats 55-13 in the FCS semifinals. So there was a spot in the national championship on the line. The crazy thing is that was the last playoff appearance for Sam Houston State. That was the last time they were in the playoffs prior to, obviously, this year. So a little bit of bad blood between these two programs. The Bearkats hoping to avenge that loss from now 4 years ago. The Bison hoping to get back to the national championship. Yes, they would still have to win this game, win in the semifinals, and get there. It's been a very different year. They've lost 2 games this year. But after their performance last week against Eastern Washington, they have showed they're not done yet. They are not done yet, and their hopes for another national title are very much alive. So we are here to break down everything you need to know about this game, the offense, the defense, and of course who we have winning on Sunday afternoon. So let's take a look at the offenses first. And we'll give preference to North Dakota State, always starting with the road teams. And when you take a look at the Bison guys, it's very clear, if you've watched them all year long, that the offense has been the weak point of the team. If you had to choose a side of the ball that North Dakota State has struggled more on, it's on offense. The defense, to me, has certainly carried the Bison over the course of this season. Look at the offensive numbers. They're averaging just 25.1 points per game. They're only averaging 124.3 passing yards per game, but they're a very run-centric team, averaging 222.4 rushing yards per game. And I will say that while a lot of people want to criticize the Bison, want to criticize their offensive performances and things like that, they saved the best for last. Last week against Eastern Washington in their playoff matchup, the Bison hit a career high, or season high, 42 points and a season high 422 rushing yards. They lit it up against the Eagles, guys. If they can do that again on Sunday, they have a very good chance to advance to the semifinals. One major change that the Bison did on Saturday, last weekend, was the fact that they replaced Zeb Noland, who had really been struggling over the course of this season. Replaced him with Cam Miller. Cam Miller actually got the start in the playoffs against Eastern Washington. He only threw for 50 yards, only rushed for 30 yards, but did have 3 total touchdowns. And of course, with the run game doing as well as they were, they didn't really have much of a need to throw anyways. But Cam Miller more than likely will get the start again this Sunday against Sam Houston State, this time though in a much bigger setting, more hostile environment, not in the confines of the Fargo Dome. This is going to be a game where the North Dakota State offense, again, like they have all year, relies on their run game, again, averaging 222.4 rushing yards per game. They are led by Dominic Ganella with 449 yards and 2 touchdowns on the year, but it should be noted that there are 4 players on this Bison offense that have eclipsed 390 rushing yards. 4 players on this Bison offense have rushed for at least 390 yards. They have options in the backfield. Cam Miller is certainly a bit of a dual threat quarterback. And when we talk about the defense in a little bit, you might see why the Bison might throw it a little bit more than they run it, at least compared to last week. The same cannot be said for Sam Houston State. The Bearkats are without a doubt a pass-centric team, and why wouldn't they be? They are 7-0, and they have one of the most prolific offenses in the entire country. They're averaging 41.4 points per game, 308.7 passing yards per game. The passing offense is their strength. That is their bread and butter. That is what they're going to go out there and do and try to beat you with. And why wouldn't you, again, when you have a quarterback like Eric Schmidt, 2,154 yards on the year, 15 touchdowns, does have 7 interceptions, but it's pretty easy to look really dang good when you have an elite wide receiver like Jaquez Ezzard, who has 21 receptions for 614 yards and 6 touchdowns. He's averaging 29.2 yards per catch, guys. That's unreal. Those numbers, those stats are absolutely ridiculous. So the Bearkats are going to come out there. They're going to try to immediately beat you through the air. They're a very fast-paced team. They're an up-tempo team. Their drives do not last very long. They like to rely on that home run ball. But in addition to that, while they are so great through the air, they're not too shabby on the ground either. They're averaging 185.9 rushing yards per game with Raymond Jefferson, who has 570 yards and 5 touchdowns on the year. So this team is very, very balanced. It's just going to be a matter of North Dakota State can slow them down any. And it is possible to do that. In last week's victory against Monmouth, the first round of the FCS playoffs, Sam Houston State was held to a season-low 21 points and a season-low 133 passing yards. If Monmouth can do it, North Dakota State can do it. It's really going to be a matter of if the Bearkats can bounce back. Will they bounce back after a lackluster offensive performance, a very uncharacteristic offensive performance in last week's opening round game? That's the million-dollar question. Again, though, this team is averaging 41.4 points per game. They've scored at least 42 points in 4 of the 7 games they played in. I do have a feeling they'll bounce back in a big way. When you look at the defense, though, guys, of course, it's the Bison that have the most difficult task here, if you ask me personally. Each of these teams has their strength. North Dakota State prefers to run. Sam Houston State prefers to pass. But if you're looking for a team that has the more balanced offense, it's going to be the Bearkats. There's no doubt about that. When you look at North Dakota State's defense, we mentioned it earlier. That's been the strength for them all year. They're 7-2 on the year, but when you look at their victories, some of them are more impressive than others, but the one thing that stood out more than anything is how well their defense has played. And listen to the numbers. They're less allowing 17.3 points per game. That's it. They're only allowing 178.8 passing yards per game, and that to me is the key number going into this matchup on Sunday. 178.8 passing yards per game. That's about 133 passing yards less than what Sam Houston State is averaging. So what's going to give there? Well, the Bison secondary, which does not create many takeaways, they're just stingy. They don't allow many completions, and if they do allow one, they're immediately tackling you and taking you down. Is that Bison secondary going to continue to remain at an elite level, or will Eric Schmid find holes in the secondary and hit a few home run balls for the Bearkats, exploit some weaknesses there, and get back on track after only throwing for 133 yards last week? The Bison are allowing 131.1 rushing yards per game, a little bit more of a concerning number, considering the Bearkats can run the ball. Again, it's just a matter of if North Dakota State can make the Bearkats one-dimensional. The defense is there. They're stingy enough. They're physical enough. They're one of the best in the country. No doubt about that. But there are 2 things that stand out to me more than anything. When you look at the Bison, first off, they did beat Eastern Washington last week, but they did allow 246 passing yards in that game. I can promise you that Sam Houston State's passing offense is better than what the Eagles brought to the Fargo Dome just last week. Also, prior to that, before that playoff game on the 17th, North Dakota State played South Dakota State, big-time rivalry game there. And the Bison allowed 309 rushing yards to the Jackrabbits. So you've seen where they do have weaknesses there. They can allow a bunch of passing yards. They can allow a lot of rushing yards. They've been a little bit inconsistent at times. What's going to happen? Which North Dakota State defense will show up? The one that's able to put together a full, complete game, or one that has a bit of a lapse, either in the passing defense or the rushing defense? The problem is, if they have one lapse, it's enough for Sam Houston State to take advantage of it and run away with this game. They have to play a full 60 minutes. They might have to have their best defensive performance of the year. For Sam Houston State, the Bearkats, everybody wants to focus so much on their offense. Their defense, to me, does not get enough attention. They are just as good as North Dakota State on the defensive side of the ball. They're allowing just 17.1 points per game. They're allowing 305.3 passing yards per game. And right there, you'd say, ooh, that's a lot. 305.3 passing yards per game. That's very, very concerning. What are we going to do about that? But does it matter? They're facing a North Dakota State team that doesn't like to throw the ball, has been very poor, mediocre at best, throwing the ball this year. Again, averaging just 124.3 passing yards per game. Cam Miller, when he has played, has not done much through the air. And yes, maybe that's because the running game has been so dominant. But even when he has thrown, he has not been that great. Neither was Zeb Nolan. They don't have great downfield passing options for their quarterbacks. That's the million-dollar question here. If I'm North Dakota State, I'm going to air it out a little bit more against Sam Houston State because their secondary is more vulnerable. We're seeing that. But do we have the quarterback and do we have the receivers to go get the job done for us there? Because the problem with all that is while the passing defense is really lackluster for the Bearcats, the rushing defense is fantastic. They're allowing just 64.3 rushing yards per game. They're allowing just 64.3 rushing yards per game. They've allowed over 100 rushing yards just twice this season. They've never allowed more than 120 rushing yards. And again, the Bison are averaging 222.4 rushing yards per game. What is going to give here? The Bison's strength is the run. Sam Houston State has one of the best rushing defenses in the country. They have one of the worst passing defenses in the country. But North Dakota State's passing offense isn't up there. So something's going to change for the Bison, or Sam Houston State's going to struggle a little bit if the Bison want to have a chance to win this game. Someone's going to have to come in with a pretty dang good game plan, because when you look at these numbers, it does not bode well for North Dakota State. So what is going to happen? Down in Texas on Sunday afternoon, 2 o'clock Central Time kickoff on Sunday, not Saturday, on Sunday, a quarterfinal matchup between two great programs, one that has been one of the greatest dynasties, not just in the FCS, but in all of sports, and a Sam Houston State squad that is anxious to get to the semifinals, hoping to get to the national championship game again, making their first playoff appearance since 2017. To me, guys, this genuinely is a tough call. It's that battle between dang good defense and dang good offense. Which one is going to give? My question here is, which North Dakota State team shows up? Are we going to see the team that went out and annihilated their rival North Dakota? We're going to see the team that showed up last week and thrashed Eastern Washington after a lackluster first half. They shut them out in the second half. Or are we going to see the team that got annihilated at home against South Dakota State? When you look at Sam Houston State, are they going to bounce back from a lackluster offensive performance last week, barely surviving Monmouth in that opening round game? Will they bounce back? Or if their offense remains lackluster because they're facing an even better defense, will they make the appropriate adjustments, get enough plays to go their way to get a crucial home playoff victory? That's the million-dollar question. When I look at all these factors combined, what we've seen the last few weeks, what we look at the numbers over the course of the season, I've got to go with my gut here. And my gut may serve me wrong, but I'm picking Sam Houston State. I am picking the Bearkats to advance to the semifinals. They have the home field advantage. They are more balanced offensively. And again, that defense is better than people are letting on. And the number that matters the most is their rushing defense. 64.3 rushing yards per game. North Dakota State averaging 222.4 rushing yards per game. If the Bearkats shut down the run game, I do not have faith in the Bison's passing attack to pick up that slack and get a win, especially on the road. So we are picking the Bearkats to win on Sunday. They will advance to the semifinals. We'll take on the winner of James Madison and North Dakota. We will have a prediction on that very, very soon. But credit to the Bearkats. They'll improve to 8-0, one win away from making the national championship, guys. This is going to be a dogfight on Sunday. You don't want to miss it. So, guys, thank you so much for watching us here at The Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and also make sure to check out everything down in that description below. Exclusive content for you guys over on Spotify and Apple with our brand new Gridiron Expert podcast. Check out our website, thegridironexpert.com. Plenty of exclusive offers over there. You don't want to miss it. It's extra content to get you through this offseason. It's all right there down in the description. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.